down to Biscayne. Yikes. 5 on the floor, ride for my dogs. Where here's the thing, you can check the score. Hustle hard, couple scars, wearing rubber frauds. Just like Butler said, you in trouble, y'all. Kept the floor playing, got it all banned. Y'all seen the block, stop with one hand. And Pat, we trust.
You sound scared.
It's about have the guts, we're here to bring the heat. Y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to 5 on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, Alex Toledo, Brady Hawk, and others from the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Also, make sure to subscribe to Off the Floor for the most heat anywhere.
Welcome back to another edition of 5 on the Floor. This is a live post-game edition. We come to you directly following the Miami Heat's victory over the New Orleans Pelicans. They had to get this one, 119-108. Happy New Year's. Happy New Year, excuse me. I can't stand when people say New Year's. I can't believe I just did that. I am your host, Greg Sylvander. We are live. I got Eternal with me. I got Digital Adel with me. So we are going to dissect the Miami Heat's victory. Jimmy was back. We saw Tyler. We saw Bam. There was some interesting stuff off the bench. So we got a lot to unpack. Before we do, we're shouting out Off the Floor. You know it as something that we are screaming from the rooftops at all times. This is our Discord server, $2.99 a month, $3.99 on your Apple device, but you can bypass that with the link in the description of this episode. That's where you get channels to talk Heat all day, all night. You can talk transactions. You can talk just regular Miami Heat basketball. We have host updates. We do stage shows. This is where you want to be for Miami Heat conversation. Get rid of all your other social media platforms to have to talk Miami Heat. This is one place you get the most heat anywhere. Check it out, Off the Floor. So this was a game that I think Heat fans were looking forward to as we get to the new year. Happy New Year, fellas. Particularly because Jimmy Butler was back. Before we dive into our segments where we kind of get into all the different aspects of tonight's game, because it ended up really being more about other guys than it was about Jimmy. Adele, let me start with you here. What were your thoughts on Jimmy Butler's performance? He played 24 minutes. Spo didn't have to use him there at the end, so I think we should understand that they probably are preserving him for tomorrow's game. They're going to be on the second night of a back-to-back. Your thoughts on Jimmy as he was back finally? Heat fans had been kind of worried about what the heck the status was. He appeared to be sick. He's better now. He played. Your thoughts on how he played?
Jimmy, visibly, you can tell that he's lost weight. So the story about the illness definitely seems to check out. His defense was there because I think the group in the first half really inspired him to be like, oh, I got to play defense on these possessions too, because they're playing solid defense. But offensively, the graphic for the rejoin, whenever they were coming back from commercial break, the way they phrased it was he's easing back into playing. And that seems to be how he played on offense all night. He just took it easy. Like a Bob Marley track, man. He was just easy. And one of the things that really stood out to me was whenever he took that corner jumper off of 1 foot. We have a YouTube comment.
Hey, I'm kicking off the new year. We're going off the script a little bit. Do you want to respond to this YouTube comment? I'm going to read it for our podcast listeners only. It says, Digital Adel, enjoy your sweet smile and hesitant laugh, yet your dominant personality makes me timid and apprehensive. Do you have any comment back to Jet?
My comment is Happy New Year, and we got a Heat victory, and I'm glad you're tuning in along with us, and really appreciate all the support. But yeah, Jimmy took it easy most of the night offensively. He eased his way back in. Locked in, I wouldn't say that. I think he was getting some cardio reps in there. There was a long stretch where Spo left the starters in that second half before he went out for good. And I think that was just getting some cardio reps for Jimmy, to be honest.
Yeah, there's a comment from Nick here about Jimmy's one-footed three from deep. That was something that on playback, I know that Eternal and I both were like, what was that? I was in the chat. He was on stage. Eternal, do you think that we should what were your thoughts on Jimmy overall? I know that you have been one that has kind of talked about that he probably would need some level of a ramp-up process here. Your thoughts on Jimmy's game before we go to the first segment of the night?
Here's one thing I would say. If anybody wants to point to some bullshit, it's that one leg three. I'll give you that one. That was bullshit. Outside of that, Brady had pointed out in our Discord, for those of you who are not in our Discord, make sure you check it out. It's $2.99 to join, $3.99 if you are unfortunately an Apple user and you have to use the Apple App Store, Play Store, whatever the fuck out there. But anyway, I think Jimmy did a lot of standing around, is what Brady pointed out. On defense, he did look active. He did look engaged. He didn't have like the Jimmy steals as he often does, but he had a couple of deflections in there. Some of that defense, as far as just, being in front of the defender, was similar to what we had seen from Jimmy in the past, not last season. But I mean, hey, for a guy that lost a lot of weight and was very sick and getting IV, he was out there. He didn't get hurt. They got a game tomorrow. So
that's and Tyler played 40 minutes and Bam played 31. So I think having Jimmy, kind of preserve energy for tomorrow, they may need more heavy lifting. Speaking of Bam and Tyler, let's get to the first segment, the A-Aggressive Player of the Game.
And now it's time for the A-Aggressive Insurance Player of the Night, sponsored by our friend Lynette. You can find her at insurancebylynette.com. That's with 2 N's and 2 T's, insurancebylynette.com. If you need car insurance, renter's insurance, homeowner's insurance, or any other type of insurance, she's the person to go to. Based in Lauderhill, she services the entire Tri-County area here in South Florida, and she will make sure to get you the best deal. She'll probably talk to you about the heat while you're at it. Reach out to her, insurancebylynette.com. And now, the player of the game.
So Eternal pitched the idea of a co-player of the game, and I think he's on to something here, because although in 40 minutes, Tyler had 32 points, still remained efficient at 11 of 22 shooting, 5 of 12 from 3, 4 assists, no turnovers. Bam had an equally triple-double watch type game. Adele, let's just talk about Tyler first, because I think that with all the focus on Jimmy in the last couple weeks, it's good for us to circle back to the to this just absolute rock solid, you can count on it night over night play that you're getting from Tyler offensively. And I think that that's just a new development that we're getting used to. Your thoughts on Tyler Hero's extra efficient game, shooting 11 of 22, and like the 30-point threshold, he's getting to it a couple times a week, it feels like now. Your thoughts on Tyler's game before we pick Eternal's brain on Bam?
Yeah, Tyler Hero, I thought he had reached his ceiling the prior season, and he shattered those expectations in terms of his consistency, his constantly making the right reads. And even when it's one of those shots where Tyler's taking, you're like, what is that, Tyler? You're shocked if it doesn't go in. And Tyler, the added muscle, the game is slowing down, so his basketball IQ is matching the increased physicality and explosiveness, quicker first step. All of it's coming together at the right time, and he's gone right through his ceiling, and he's that player you can count on night in and night out now. When last season, you wouldn't have even thought that that would have been something that would have occurred. And Royal Shepherd, I would have to say, would even be able to say something like Tyler Hero is a player you can count on. And Tyler, whenever you need a big shot, a big bucket to stop the momentum, the other team scoring, because this game was closer than it needed to be all night, Tyler would get you those buckets and get you those buckets whenever you need them, whether it was a 3, mid-range. He had one where he fought through the contact. He had great contact balance and finished the layup, when in previous years, he would have just bumped a little bit and shot a floater. But now that increased physicality and contact balance, he's able to finish those plays. And I just think it makes a world of difference in his game.
Yeah, you mentioned Royal Shepherd. Shout out to him. He's in the chat. Happy New Year to you and the fellas over there doing their thing. We appreciate you tapping in here. Bam Adebayo on triple double watch again, Eternal. Your thoughts on Bam's game? This was another one where he kind of started out and it looked a little funky offensively, but he ultimately figured himself out on a night when they didn't get much from Jimmy, when Haywood Highsmith was kind of non-functional to a degree. They needed Bam to figure himself out, and by the end of the game, he did. Your thoughts on Adebayo?
I mean, for me, I think it's just, a building block to the next game. You just want to see more of that. Like, we've seen some cases this year where Bam hasn't been kind of his usual self, or what we kind of seen last year. Where he was just really, really aggressive as far as attacking whoever his matchup was in front of him, doing his part to close out games defensively and offensively. You just haven't seen that this year. I know you talked about on playback. Make sure you join us on playback. That Bam had been exhausted, and you can kind of see that in some areas of his play. But it was just good to see him get some shots up and go in the basket. He lost a little bit of that aggressive and assertive nature. A little bit this year. And so it's good to see that come back. And so however you can build upon that, be it this game, and hopefully it stacks up as the season goes on. So I think he had 8 or 10 points in the fourth quarter. You just want to see more of that. Bam is a very, very good player. A lot of people are down on him offensively. I think for Bam, it's more of a mental thing than a capability thing. So
I think that you're onto something there. And this is a moment where Bam, I believe, is starting to get over the hump on the mental side of this stuff. And I think that bodes well for the Heat going forward. Again, they do get the victory 119-108. Let's get to our next segment, sponsored by Mobile C Arm and Staffing, the X-Ray Play of the Day.
And now it's time for the X-Ray of the Play of the Day, brought to us by our friends over at Mobile C-Arm and Staffing Services. Nelson and his team will bring the X-ray equipment and the staffing to you. If you work in a hospital or a medical office, get a consultation today at c-armandstaffing.com or give them a call at 561-891-9620. Their fleet of trucks at your service. Again, it's Mobile C-Arm and Staffing Services, 561-891-9620. And now, the X-Ray of the Play of the Day.
So we're all going to have our opinions on the play of the day, but I'm going to use it as an opportunity to shout out someone else who's on Triple Double Watch, and that's Nico. Mr. Nikola Jovic in 33 minutes, 8.7 rebounds, 6 assists. He had some great passes tonight. He was really plugged in. There was one specifically where he found Bam for a dunk that I thought was really nice. This was a great game for him. Eternal, we'll go to you first on this one. Your favorite play of the night? Oh, you're on mute.
No, I was trying to find the B button. Okay. I would say the best play of the night was probably from your last 3 first-round picks. Nico on the right block, or the left block, I guess, however you're looking at it. Posting up the defender. Jaime screaming down the middle of the lane. Nico hits him with a bounce pass. Jaime draws a defender. Khalil comes from the other block. Dunk. And I thought that was just beautiful symmetry and chemistry of what we saw of the night. As we were talking about on playback, just the energy that you saw with that bench unit, with Tyler, with Alec Burks at times, with Nico and Jaime and Khalil, it just seemed like they had a different type of bounce to them in the flow of their offense and even on defense. Even though, like, I see a lot of people in our Discord when I credited Nico for his defense and there was question marks. Yes, Trey Murphy was getting off. He was also getting off on everybody who was in front of him. But they played really good defense tonight at times, and I think that you can really, really build upon this with this second unit.
your favorite play? I know there's a ton that we're going to miss here just by virtue of the fact that we're only have a limited amount of selections, but Adel, which one jumped out at you?
My favorite play of the night was Jaime screaming down the court, throwing a lob to Kello Ware and him flushing it home. His vertical spacing and lob threat ability, it's such a high percentage play. To have a 7-foot athlete that can finish like that, it just does so much for your basketball team and for your efficiency, because there were so many other plays off of that the Pelicans were hesitant to help because they knew that lob threat was there. So that was just one of the many lobs to Kello Ware tonight that I thought were really impactful and super fun to watch.
For sure. I want to also mention, as we talk about Kello Ware, because that's where we're going to go next, that this was an interesting game where we got to see him against a prospect that he was measured against throughout the draft process. And so that was a measuring stick, I thought. As we just look at the Pelicans overall, I want to shout out that they don't defend well. I took that from this game. But Trey Murphy can score his ass off. He was great. CJ McCollum had 22 points on 9 of 16 shooting. DeJounte Murray kind of, he's 0-5 from 3. Herb Jones did Herb Jones things. I'd love to have him in Miami. Just recapping some of those players. We're going to get into Kello Ware next, and we're going to use the Defending the House segment to do it.
And now it's time for our Defending the House segment, sponsored by our friends over at The Real Estate Shop. You can find them at realestateshopfl.com. That's with 2 P's and an E, realestateshopfl.com, or at the Fort Lauderdale Realtor on Instagram. This is Javier Iglesias and Amanda Martin. They help buyers and sellers in real estate. They're nimble and protective of their clients. They service the entire Tri-County area. That's Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach counties with a proven on-market strategy. The Real Estate Shop sellers earn the most money in the shortest time frame because Amanda and Javier have a deep understanding of the local market. So check them out. Again, it's at the Fort Lauderdale Realtor on Instagram, realestateshopfl.com, or give them a call at 954-268-9812. And now, who defended the house?
So just to reiterate to our viewers and our listeners, just recapping that the Heat did not have Terry Rozier tonight. So that was due to suspension, they were down a guard. Josh Richardson still is not playing. Drew Smith obviously out for the season. Got a lot of DMP coaches' decisions tonight. They're rounding themselves into an interesting bench unit that I think is, strangely enough, in certain ways, feels like at moments could be headlined by Kello Ware and the way that they are kind of really using the vertical spacing he provides, but also on offense, throwing it up to him and just having that. It's not something that they have on the roster. Eternal, I know that you're a proponent of this guy. Your thoughts on his matchup with Misi, your thoughts on his kind of integration into the second unit and what he brings, the synergy with some of the other guys off the bench that are young. I think they're all positive things, and I know you'll be able to tie a bow on it and articulate it probably better than I.
I think the main thing that you can kind of point to is kind of what I was touching on earlier, is just the energy that you see, right? Just body language wise and how they move on offense and defense. When Nico and even with Jaime are on the floor with Khalil and Tyler and Khalil and things like that. And just, there's just something about having like that youth, right? Like, you're going to have mistakes, right? Obviously, but it's also a good thing that those players have really good IQs as well, right? Like, yeah, you could point out some things, well, they're not as physical, they're not as athletic, they don't have this, yada, yada, yada. But for the most part, most of those guys have really good basketball IQs. And, you know, having a great coach like Spo and great coaching staff that does put so much emphasis on teaching the fundamentals, which is why you haven't seen Khalil like that, which is why you've seen Nico go from the starting lineup back to the bench, because they are so hardcore on the fundamentals. And when you pair those things, Adele, Greg, with the natural talent that those guys have, then you can start seeing results like some of what we saw tonight, right? Like it's not a finished product by no stretch of the imagination for Khalil or any of those guys. But if you get more of these kind of like building blocks of what makes a great player or a good player, and a great player, then you have what you need of like getting those type of winning basketball plays and impacts. And I just think, man, Khalil finished, I think, 4-4 from the field.
Yeah.
Like no misses. Had a couple of misses at the free throw line, but other than that, I believe he finished with 5 rebounds. Now there's some things that of course you can nitpick and be like, hey, well, this could have been better. But him playing the way he did against another prospect who has every bit of motor that you can ever ask for is promising. And so yeah, I think just going off of that, I think Khalil just had another building block game. Is the best way I can put it, and especially with that unit that he was playing with.
Yeah, he's stacking good days, and that's like for a rook to be sent down to the G League, come back, continue to stack good days. I think it's a positive development for this team. They needed a shot in the arm in a certain kind of way. I feel like fans felt that way too, and this has been a pleasant surprise to see him out there, Adel. But I'm going to ask you the $1 million question. Do you think that this is trending towards pockets of the game, us getting to see Bam and Ware play together, or am I jumping? Am I jumping a little? Am I getting ahead of myself?
So I think we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. I mean, I graded him out so far to be like a C+ on the season. The last like 5 games, more of a B-, so there's improvement there. But Spo is really protecting Ware. They're using him in a way where he's strictly a pick and lob guy, or every once in a while he'll space to the top of the key. Outside of that, that's his only role offensively, and that's because Spo is protecting him to make the game simple, so he doesn't have to try to think the game right now. He just wants him to play fast, play instinctual, play hard. Those are the main things he's trying to see right now out of Ware. I don't think you're going to see Bam minutes anytime this season with Ware, outside of like there's 30 seconds left in a quarter, a minute left in a quarter, and we need a couple of rebounds. That may happen, but I don't see any significant minutes of Bam and Ware together this season. I think where he's really impactful for this team, like Eternal was saying, that second unit with those 3 first-round picks for the Miami Heat, you got Jovic, you've got Jaquez, and you have Ware. They are playing so well together. And another thing, Hero plays really well with Ware. He likes playing with Ware. They have great chemistry. So if you keep Tyler in with that second unit, and those guys are running around with their young energy, young legs, I just think you have something really going there with that youth movement for sure. So I like what I've seen out of Ware this season.
Kind of to jump in real quick, Greg, Adel. The other thing that puts a like really big pause into that, seeing them on the court together, Bam is getting the shots up, but they're not in the flow of the offense or really in the rhythm of himself. Case in point, Adel, you talked about it on playback. When you talk about Nico chopping his feet, getting himself ready for the 3, all of the things that we were seeing Bam do from his training in this, in summer, working with Spo, in preseason training camp, things of that nature, like we're not seeing that carry over how he was preparing, basically. Like you're not seeing that. And so Bam isn't getting those same 3-point shots up, even similar to what he was doing last year. The numbers may be a little higher, but just the flow of them is not there. And so that prevents them being on the court together unless you see an uptick of threes and makes for Khalil. Like you need that in order for them to be on the court together. Unless you have 3 really, really good 3-point shooters outside of them on the court with them.
Yeah, I think that I kind of posed that question knowing where the answer was going to head, that we're a little ahead of ourselves with Bam and Ware together. But with the way Kevin Love's been phased out, with the way that this team needed, they just don't have anyone physically, and I don't mean physically as in like strong necessarily, but just built in the way that Ware is built and his ability to do things vertically. They just don't have guys that are that tall, I guess, is really what it boils down to.
He also changes things in the paint defensively. Even if he doesn't get the block, like he makes them reconsider coming into the paint.
And the Heat don't block a ton of shots, so it's like an added element that they don't have from other guys. So I think it's been really a positive thing. You know, after the Orlando loss where they, you know, were up 22 or whatever and lost in the fourth quarter, Ethan and I talked the next day, and I said, like, we both kind of arrived at the conclusion that the next thing for the fans is to see something from Ware, and hopefully he would pop. And we're starting to see that. Career high tonight, 10 points. As Eternal mentioned, 5 rebounds. So perfect from the field. We'll take it all day. Shout out to our sponsors. Shout out to everybody. Happy New Year. We're going to take 5 minutes here, and in the chat, any of your Miami Heat New Year's resolutions, give them to us. We'll read them. We'll talk about them. We're going to close out the show that way, try to have some fun. Let's hear if you got anything for us. Miami Heat 2025 New Year's resolutions. Adele, you got anything off the top of your head?
Yeah, I got a resolution for the Miami Heat. I will put some respect on Terry Rozier's name because of the way he came and defended Tyler Hero against that Houston team. So he has my respect. I love the way he stood up for his guy. And I'm going to be a little bit more optimistic with Terry Rozier.
We got get a point guard from Ronster. I think that is an interesting thing because, you know, Spo is so adverse to try labeling positions. There's also the one from Macmon here. The 2025 resolution is to trade Rozier. And then we have another one here. How do we see Jovic, Bam, and Ware lineup working down the line? Those are all some interesting forward thinking, kind of viewpoints in terms of what the Heat should be doing. I don't know that we're going to necessarily get to all of those things in this calendar year. Which one of those, Eternal, do you think is most pressing? Do they need to get a floor general facilitator type player? Do they need to shed Rozier and try to figure out a better solution in terms of a fit for this team? Or should they pivot, and should this be about the young guys? Your thoughts on those three and kind of where you would go and what your New Year's resolution might be?
I think that, you had mentioned it in Discord earlier. I think Miami has a choice to make, and one that they can make that, kind of helps them now and in the future. You just have to make that choice. It does involve Jimmy, and not necessarily trading him, but you have to, it's dominoes that have to fall in order for you to do what you have to do. But I do think, as far as the point guard question, they do need one, but more so on the point of attack defense. Now you're starting to wall off the paint, right? As far as having Nico play bigger, having Ware down there, Bam, obviously, and things of that nature. But you need somebody up top, right? And when you start seeing more of those dynamic players like Jalen Brunson and all of these other guys that you have to face, going into the playoffs or whatever. I know it's a little down the line, but you're gonna have to address that at some point. So whether that's Fultz, whether you do swing something for Fox or whoever else, you're gonna have to do something. Just because you lost, Drew, Josh ain't that person anymore. So how many nights are you gonna put Tyler out there? Terry's never been that guy. He's not ready on Rondo. So at some point you're gonna have to address that, just period. So whether that's Fultz or whoever else out there, or making that trade. I said on Playback Greg that this would probably be the year that some crazy shit happened at the trade deadline or before the trade deadline. So who knows?
Yeah. And that we'll have a lot to talk about, because this does seem like a year where it could end up being a little more quiet for Miami. Conversation for another day. That probably means it won't be quiet, because obviously it'll be counterintuitive to whatever we believe. A couple other ones that came in here. A defensive ball handler would be nice this year. I could agree with that. Getting De'Aaron Fox, I think that's a good way to end the show. We'll end it on a positive note. Getting De'Aaron Fox would be awesome. Let's see how they could get creative to do so. We'll continue to monitor things in Sacramento. We will have you covered. The Miami Heat play again tomorrow. Who do they play? Is it Indiana that they've got tomorrow? I think it is. But if it's not, whoever it is, we'll have you covered for that one. And to everyone watching, Major is joining on the post-game show tomorrow, if I remember correctly. So get your bets in however you please. Thank you for joining us. Shout out to Adel and Eternal for their time. And Happy New Year to our viewers, to our listeners, to everybody on Off the Floor. Subscribe there for the most heat anywhere. Peace out.
Peace out.